Hi, this is Dr. B. In this video, I'll give you a short overview of report writing. When we talk about research articles and scientific research, we're actually talking about reports. An article is a research report. I'll discuss the purpose of research reports in scientific writing and research, the main parts of a report, and give you some writing and design tips based on how readers read these reports. To understand how to write an effective research article, you need to understand why researchers write them and why readers read them. To publish means to literally make public. A report is essentially a vehicle for communicating information about research to a larger audience. The big picture is this. A report sells the reader on a problem and then details the solution to that problem. In the case of scientific research, the problem is the objective of the research, and the solution is comprised of the study's design and findings. Researchers write reports to share their findings with a larger public audience. This is, of course, how science works, by sharing information and building on what has come before. But publishing articles is important for various other reasons too, including winning funding, earning tenure, professional credibility, and career longevity. There are dozens of possible readers, but there's one thing they do all have in common. They have a clear purpose for reading this article, they're searching for specific information, and they want to be able to do something with it. For example, they may want to learn more about the field, replicate or modify the study for their own research, or understand how their own research builds into what has come before. The audience of a report is a mix of different readers with different reasons for reading the report and with different needs. Some readers may be fellow experts working on the same problem. They may not require as much background information, but will be interested in how we describe the problem and our research aims. They'll probably scrutinize the sources in our literature review to determine their credibility. They are probably more interested in our research design and results. They have rigorous demands for these sections and will want to determine the validity of our methods and results for themselves. Our readers may also be scientists or researchers working on something related. They may not work in our specific field or on our specific problem, but they're interested for some reason related to their own work. They will need a bit more background information, and they may want to review our sources so they can look them up themselves to learn more. They may be interested in our methodology, but will probably focus more on our analysis and the implications of our work found in the discussion section. On the other hand, our readers may be professional but not expert readers who are evaluating work for some other purpose, like funding or awards. They'll focus on how our work is relevant to the field, fellow researchers, and science in general. They'll be interested in the introduction and conclusion section and maybe some of our analysis. Or they may be citizen scientists scrutinizing data. These readers will scrutinize the results section and sometimes the methodology section to determine if it's sound and if we can trust the data. Or readers could be a graduate student learning about a new technique. This person may see the methods section as like a recipe to follow. So a report has different sections, and each of those sections performs a different function for our reader. Since we have different readers with different needs, we have different sections with different types of information. It's important to reiterate that reports are written for the reader, not the writer. The way we design and write an article must match the reader's needs. Remember that we do not write and design for ourselves, but our readers. Keeping this in mind, let's take a look at the parts of a report. These are the main parts of a report. The introduction establishes the need for the research, describes the objectives of the research, and then previews the remainder of the document. The methods detail the procedure or process the researchers undertook to answer the research questions and to generate data. The results and analysis section presents the main findings, usually our data, and then interprets that data. The discussion sums up the main findings and discusses the implications of this study and often includes a discussion of future work. This may look familiar. Some of the sections are similar to a proposal. In a proposal, we also review the literature, detail the problem, provide a research plan, and discuss the implications of the work. There are some differences, however. First of all, in a proposal, we write about what we will do, and in a report, we write about what we've done. This means that not only do we write in past tense in the report, but we're more detailed. We can write with more specificity and clarity about something that we've done than something we haven't done yet. The problem, literature review, and methodology of a proposal can be adapted to a report. However, it's important to revise the scope of these sections to fit what we actually did and what we actually found. Sometimes real life deviates from the plan. Let's look at each of these sections of a report in more detail. An introduction is really just that. It introduces the reader to the work, but it does so in 3 different ways. It first introduces the reader to the body of work that's been done on this problem. Remember that in science, we build on what has come before. It's meant to be a collaborative effort of people across time and distance, chipping away at problems and slowly building information to create a body of knowledge. So as writers, we need to orient the reader. What work has come before? Why is there a need for this work in the first place? Why is this problem important? One of the main ways we do this in scientific writing is by reviewing the literature. The literature or sources you select not only helps the reader to understand important information and how this work builds into what has come before, but it also helps to build your credibility. The sources you choose to cite can showcase your familiarity with the field, and though this may be unfair, the credibility of your sources can add or detract from your own. Second, this section educates the reader on any important developments, trends, or topics they need to know to understand the relevance of your work. Your reader may or may not be an expert on this particular topic, so it's important to review anything they need to know here. Third, the introduction introduces the reader to this document. We always want to preview, or what I call forecast, what is coming in the remainder of this specific article. It's important to remember that even in scientific writing, this section is persuasive, not objective. Your job is to persuade the reader that you know what you're talking about, the problem is relevant, the study contributes something important, and they should keep reading. The problem statement is essentially a part of the introduction. It's also a challenge to write in detail. Problem statements occur in many professional genres, including proposals and reports. In a scientific article, it is focused on detailing the reason for the study in the first place. What is the problem here? Why are we researching this thing? What happens if we don't do anything about it? Why is this important or relevant? Who does this impact and in what way? What questions can your study answer, but what questions are outside the scope of this study and why? How do you know your study is answering the questions you're posing or will solve the problem you're describing? A problem statement is a critical piece of writing for your report or article. Not only does it specify what this study is about, but it also persuades your reader that this is important. It builds your credibility, and it helps you to convince your reader that your research is doing exactly what you're saying it's doing. In scientific writing, the introduction also contains a literature review. The literature review performs these essential functions. It provides background information, it helps you to define the research problem, and it provides an overview of the field. However, literature or sources are not limited to this section. We can include literature in other sections of our report. We may use sources to help us define our methods, or to compare or contrast our results, or to help us discuss implications. The methods section is a difficult section to write because at first it seems objective. Here, the writer's job is to detail the study design. Based on your research problem or questions, what did you then do to answer those questions? It's important to provide as much detail here as possible. Though someone may not follow this section step by step in real time, writers do need to give enough detail that someone could replicate this methodology and therefore verify or reject your findings at a later date. The hallmark of scientific research is replicability, meaning others need to be able to do similar work and have similar findings. However, it's not enough to simply detail the procedure. Writers must also justify their methods. Why? A report is a form of argumentation. Your job is to convince the reader there's a problem, that it's important, that you're qualified to solve it, and that your solution is trustworthy. You've convinced the reader of the problem and its relevance in the introduction. You also started building your own credibility. You continue that process here and start to persuade the reader that your solution, or in this case study, is trustworthy and can be verified. So you want to make sure you not only tell your reader what you did, but why it's a good way to answer your questions. This also helps to ensure that the data you generate from these methods can be trusted. Our methods section is not quite a recipe, but it is what we call a process explanation. A process explanation is a detailed description of the process or procedure. It's similar to instructions, but instead of written in a step-by-step format, it's usually written in paragraph form and using past tense. There needs to be enough information that someone can understand whether your data is trustworthy, and so they can design their own methodology to get similar data. The results and analysis are the heart of the report. Essentially, in this section, you're detailing your findings and making a final evaluation of your current study. Remember that science is about collaboration, about people across space and time working to understand something and add to our knowledge of how the world works. Science values scrutiny, so in this section, a writer must do two things. One, you must present your findings in a detailed enough way that others can scrutinize them, and two, interpret that data in the context of the research problem or questions. That is, you present your findings, but you present your interpretation of those findings as well. These two things are important but separate. Your interpretation is important because it's your main insight and input as a researcher. Remember that we're persuading our readers that our findings are trustworthy and relevant. To build our credibility, however, we must also present the data in detail so that someone can review them and decide for themselves if we found what we say we found. We can't expect them to take our word for it. For this reason, we often use visuals in our results and analysis section. Tables allow us to show our data or results for others to view or scrutinize. Figures, charts, and data visualization enable us to interpret our results, highlight relationships and patterns, or to evaluate whether we've answered our research questions. Our discussion recaps the main findings and provides a big picture evaluation of the work. Have you ever wondered why you're supposed to double space a manuscript? It's important to realize that this is not how a final published paper looks. This formatting serves an important function for readers of an unpublished draft, which are usually editors, reviewers, and the writers themselves. It allows space for editing remarks, corrections, or comments. A published paper has different formatting because readers have different needs. Remember that in technical and professional writing, we need to accommodate two different reading styles, skimming and what I call choose your own adventure. Our readers are busy and will rarely read our report from beginning to end. They skip around looking for information that's relevant to them. They're also active readers. They want to be able to do something with our writing. They don't just passively receive. So we include these important features of document design to enable these needs. We break our document into sections that match our readers' expectations. It's why we have the sections of a report that we do. We label those sections with clear headings that stand apart from the text. These headings act as labels or road signs for the reader. It helps them define the information they're looking for. We also provide navigation to help orient the reader and enable them to locate information. Page numbers, for instance. In larger documents, we have tables of contents, running headers, and list of figures for easy reference. Our document and each section within it has a clear organization of ideas. I call this the forecast, expand, summarize method. The introduction forecasts or previews the rest of the document. The body expands on those ideas. The discussion or conclusion summarizes the main content. That is, you will tell the reader what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Each section does this as well. Remember that our readers skip around. We need to recap important information in each section so the reader can understand what's going on if they just skip to that section. So each section has a forecast, expand, summarize structure as well. Because our reader is busy, we also chunk information in easy to digest bites. We can use smaller paragraphs, lists, and even tables to arrange a lot of information concisely and in a way that's easy to skim. Finally, we want to use design to create an information hierarchy. The most important information is easy to spot. That is one reason why headings are often designed differently from the body text, so they're easy to spot. We also use subheadings or different levels of headings to structure sections. Information within sections should be organized and structured according to importance and relevance, not just the document as a whole. We can also use design like bolding or italics to emphasize important information and make sure it's easy to spot against the backdrop of paragraph text. That's it for now. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.